Well, everybody, I've got some news. It has been a fun ride leading GBL iguanas for these last few years, but unfortunately we have been bought out and we actually have a new CEO. I can't promise what the content's going to be moving forward, but it might be a little different.
Down.
Okay, that doesn't...
Down.
We don't need to put the down stuff in the video.
But it's cute.
It is cute.
Down.
Hello, YouTube world. It is summertime, which means it is reptile show time. So it kind of led me to think to be able to show everybody like how to do health checks essentially on reptiles. Whether you're going to a show, you're going to buy a new animal, and you kind of need to know the basic things to look for, or just the animals you have at home. Just if you're doing like a monthly, weekly, daily kind of just a health check to check up on them. So now I'm not a vet, I'm not a doctor, I'm not medically trained, nothing like that. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just simply showing you just different signs to look for to where then bringing to a vet might be, a good course of action. So first we're going to take a look here with Frankie. He is our big boy Cuban rock iguana. Hey Frankie, why are you on edge right now? You're being a little weird, which is normal. But anyway, some common things that you want to look at. Frankie, you're going to make this very difficult for me if you're going to start running around. So one big thing, and the first and foremost, is are they active? Are they alert? You want to be able to look at them, look at their eyes, which, let's see if I can get close enough without him freaking out on me. Frankie boy. You can just see by looking at his eye, there's life in there. He's thinking, he's looking around, and that's exactly what you want to see out of any animal. Well, lizard really. Snakes are going to be a little bit different than lizards, but yeah, you want to make sure that they're alert and they're active, especially if it's a reptile you have at home. Obviously at a reptile show they might not be quite as active when they're in a small container, but you can still look at them, look at their eye, and if you're looking at them in their enclosure, or if the vendor's going to allow you to hold them, pick them up, you want them to be alert. You don't want them to just be sitting there lifeless. So that's one really, that's the most common, common sense, and one of the easiest things to really look at when you're doing a health check on any reptile. If you're looking at their eyes and they look lifeless, they look dull, if their eye looks like it's sunken in, those are all different signs that there could be issues, whether it's nutrition problems, not so much temperature, but unless there's a long period of time, but typically that's going to show some type of a health deterioration, whether they do need let's say for parasites, or they just, their diet's bad, they're dehydrated, something like that. So the eyes are the biggest telltale sign to look at when you're looking at the health of an animal. So now the next thing you want to look at is their body composition. You want to make sure that they're a nice, healthy, lean weight. You don't want to see something skinny and emaciated. You also don't want super fat and bloated either. So, when you're looking at, most lizards and iguanas, the base of their tail is going to be the most important thing to look at. That's where their fat reserves are. So you can see on Frankie, that is a nice base. It's nice and round, but not obviously overly round. And it's not sunken in anywhere, to try and show it. Oh, Frankie, sorry, buddy. Yeah, it's kind of show it from the top. You can see that it's a nice lean base, which means it has a good amount of fat to it, but not an overly large amount. And that's the best way to tell, because sometimes an animal, if they haven't eaten for a couple days, or especially at a show, or if they've been shipped, sometimes they haven't eaten in a couple days, so their stomach might look like it's a little deflated. But that's not always the case that they may be unhealthy. It just means they haven't eaten in a couple days. So the base of the tail is going to be very, very important. Outside of that, looking at the body composition, look at their face, look at their fat reserves. Different lizards are going to have fat reserves. The iguanas are going to have their jowls. Try to get my finger there. There you go. Maybe, yeah, right there. Their jowls right there. You want to make sure those are nice and plump. You don't want to see them being, shrunken, deflated, anything like that. Make sure, when you're looking at the spine, the rib area, that you're not seeing bones or anything. So you want them to be nice and lean, which in this case is looking at Frankie. He's good. He's a tiny bit plump because he's been eaten, but you can see there's no, going down his spine there and down onto the ribs. You're not seeing any bones or anything like that. So definitely checking out that body composition there is incredibly important. Now, if you were to look at him and he's going to be, very bloated, to where, you know, he looks like he'd be a normal sized lizard on his tail, face, neck, everything, but then their stomach is like a balloon. That could oftentimes be very, very problematic. You know, that could be a parasite issue, something that definitely would need, you know, vet attention. So definitely want to look at all of those things. You can see with Frankie here, super healthy. He's active, alert. He's checking things out. Body composition looks good. So these are all great things to look at for your own animal. You know, whether you're doing a weekly checkup, a monthly checkup, you know, checking out, you know, at a reptile show. Now, some people, you might have animals that cohab together, especially like with some iguanas. You know, so I've got, you know, pairs of iguanas. Different reptile species, sometimes you can keep them together. So we want to do checks on that as well to make sure you don't need to separate things. So we're going to go take a look at Tammy and Sully, our pair of rhino iguanas, and kind of show the different things to look at health-wise when you have a pair of animals together. Okie dokie. So now to do like a health check when you have a pair of animals living together. So like I said, we're in here with our girl Tammy, and then our boy Sully. So big thing, I mean, all those health checks that we just talked about with Frankie, you want to do the exact same thing with these guys. You know, check out their eyes, make sure it's full of life, they're not sunken in, make sure they're active, and just make sure just as a whole, like your animals are just full of life. If they're becoming lethargic and they don't seem interested in really anything, especially food, bring them to a vet. So yeah, so you're going to want to check out that, check the body composition. So you can see Tammy girl here. She's my little chunker. Yes, she is. Hey, my little chunky girl, Tammy. Look at that baby. Look at that sweet baby. So Tammy is the boss around here. If y'all have seen my other videos, you know that. She's the boss. She is the head honcho. Absolutely. So typically when you're going to have a pair, a lot of times you're going to have a dominant one and then a submissive one. Sometimes you might have them both being a little more submissive. If you get that, you're lucky. But usually you're going to have a dominant and a submissive. If they're both dominant, odds are it's probably not going to be a successful pairing, and they're going to have to be separated because there's going to be just all sorts of fighting and just not good things. So thankfully, Sully is submissive. He is not a fighter. So usually when Tammy goes on, you know, one of her fits of wanting to show she's the boss, Sully just kind of runs away from her and just kind of lets her do her thing and doesn't try to challenge that. So that makes things a lot easier. So Tammy, she's the dominant one. You know, she's obviously going to get food and everything else, and she is happy and healthy. You can see her tail, the base of the tail looks great. Belly's nice and full. Oh, and she's such a sweet baby. So the dominant one you usually don't have to worry about. Now, when you go to the submissive one, that's where you want to take extra close attention. Make sure they're not getting bullied. Make sure they're eating enough. Make sure that they're healthy. So we're going to come look at Sully over here. And you can see with Sully, he's good. If anything, even though he's not underweight, I would still say he's just ever so slightly. Just because you got this thing showing a little bit excessive, but it's not skin and bone. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where, you know, could he be a tad bit chunkier? Yes, but he's not unhealthy in any stretch. He is shedding continuously, you know, so he's growing. Base of his tail looks really, really good. He's got a nice plump base here. So he's good. And then so you want to look him over, check out the eyes. You can see his eyes look great. They're alive. They're full of life. He's, of course, active. You wouldn't know that unless you're with your animal. Body composition looks good. You can see he's nice and lean. You don't see any bones, no spine, no rib cage, nothing like that. Nice thick legs, and he is just doing great. If I get all this skin off him, he'd be a really handsome boy. Hey, Tammy girl. Are you mad you're not getting all the attention? But yeah, so those are the things to look at, because a lot of times, like I said, when you have a dominant one, they can kind of hog the food. So sometimes when she's in her fit, if Sully comes over to try and eat, especially while she's eating, she'll chase him away. But in a case like that, you make sure you have extra food. You know, if you have a nice big cage, something like this, when you have, you know, you can have visual barriers, which, again, we have this corner here and everything else. If it's problematic, you can just put food in two different spots to where they can't eat each other, can't see each other while they're eating, and that makes a really big difference as well. So those are the things you really want to look at and make sure that they're healthy. You know, if you ever had a second animal and you notice it was starting to get skinny, hiding a lot. A lot of times that's because it's getting bullied by the dominant one. But so those are the things you really want to just look for, really. Do all this stuff, on the regular. Of course, people get busy. You can't always spend all the time you want to spend with your animals, and you can't always do big health checks every day, anything like that. So what I normally do, of course, when I feed them, I just do quick, I look at them, say hey to them, make sure everybody's good, and then periodically, you do, take an extra few minutes and just look at them a little bit closer, make sure everything is good. With reptiles, they typically aren't going to show illnesses or anything bad like that until it's pretty far along in the process, because that's a weakness for them. So when they're in the wild, they're going to get picked off when they show weakness. So they're not going to show until it's typically pretty late in the game. But if you pay really close attention to them, a lot of times you'll be able to pick up on things early enough to where you'll be able to right it and get them taken care of and get them nice and healthy way before it ever becomes a problem. Now, if y'all have any other questions about this kind of stuff, feel free, leave a comment down below, shoot me a message on Instagram. I'm happy to oblige and check it out. If you haven't before, we do have a website, gbleguanas.com. We do have some pretty cool merch on there, different shirts and sweatshirts and all stuff like that. We would greatly appreciate, if you want to support the channel that way. We do have a code for 10% off. It's Diego10, all one word. And yeah, we'll catch y'all next time.